I just ran outside, I called my partner, I rang him up, I said, look, I got this idea, we gotta write a song called I'm Coming Out. And he said, why? I said, because the gay community will flip out if Diana Ross walks out and goes, I'm coming out.
Diana Ross is revered by the gay community. And if we wrote a song called I'm Coming Out for Diana Ross, it would have the same power as James Brown's Say It Loud, I'm Black and I'm Proud.
He wrote the gay community's biggest anthem, and for decades, rumors about his sexuality exploded across dance floors worldwide.
And I went to a club that was primarily a trans club, but it was just, it was the 70s. Clubs were clubs. It was like, it may be a trans club, but it wasn't weird if you were straight.
When he got Diana Ross to sing I'm Coming Out, she didn't even know it was about being gay. But despite creating their liberation soundtrack, he never once confirmed the rumors about his own sexuality. This is how Nile Rodgers became the most mysterious gay icon in music history. For over 40 years, Nile Rodgers has been at the center of persistent gay rumors that have followed him from the underground clubs of 1970s New York to the Grammy stages of today. The whispers started in bathrooms, exploded on dance floors, and continue to this day on internet forums where fans debate the sexuality of the man who gave them their greatest anthems.
I just ran outside, I called my partner, I rang him up, I said, look, I got this idea, we gotta write a song called I'm Coming Out. And he said, why? I said, because the gay community will flip out if Diana Ross walks out and goes, I'm coming out.
The rumors started innocently enough, with a bathroom encounter at a queer club called The Gilded Grape in 1979. Rodgers was there researching Diana Ross when he stumbled upon something that would change pop culture forever. Surrounded by at least 6 or 7 Diana Ross impersonators in the club's bathroom, inspiration struck like lightning. But what happened next reveals the calculated genius of a man who understood cultural movements better than anyone in the music industry. This wasn't just a creative moment, it was a business revelation. Rodgers immediately recognized the untapped power of the gay community's devotion to Diana Ross. He called Bernard Edwards from outside the club, knowing he'd forget the idea if he waited until morning. The song that emerged from this bathroom epiphany would become one of the most important gay anthems in history, written by a straight man who simply understood the assignment.
Diana Ross is revered by the gay community, and if we wrote a song called I'm Coming Out for Diana Ross, it would have the same power as James Brown's Say It Loud, I'm Black and I'm Proud.
The gay power meaning was completely lost on Diana Ross herself, who thought the song was about her leaving Motown Records and declaring independence from Berry Gordy. When powerful DJ Frankie Crocker told her the song would ruin her career because people would think she was announcing her homosexuality, Ross ran back to the studio in tears. Rodgers had to lie to her face, claiming the song was about coming out on stage to start a show, not coming out of the closet. For those seeking a straightforward response, Nile Rodgers has openly and consistently identified himself as heterosexual throughout his life. He's been with his life partner Nancy Hunt for decades, co-founding the We Are Family Foundation with her in 2002. However, online polls reveal the persistence of speculation. 49% of voters think Rodgers is gay, 11% voted for straight, and 41% believe he's bisexual. The speculation intensified because Rodgers seemed to understand gay culture with an intimacy that felt personal. As he explained, I'm a New Yorker, so we know all of the gay icons, the Judy Garlands, the Diana Rosses, the Chers. So writing a song for Diana Ross called I'm Coming Out was just brilliant. His knowledge wasn't born from experience, but from cultural sophistication and business acumen. The irony is staggering. The man who created one of the most powerful gay anthems in history, who understood the community's pain and joy well enough to soundtrack their liberation, was never actually part of that community. Rodgers' genius lay not in lived experience, but in empathy and entrepreneurial instinct. He saw an underserved market and gave them exactly what they needed, when they needed it most. But understanding a community doesn't make you part of it. Rodgers' connection to gay culture came from his genuine allyship and his business savvy. He recognized an untapped market and cultural moment. The irony is that his most famous contribution to gay anthems came from a straight man who simply understood the power of representation better than most people understand their own identities. The most significant relationship in Nile Rodgers' career wasn't romantic, it was musical. His partnership with bassist Bernard Edwards created some of the most influential music of the 20th century, but it also sparked rumors and tensions that would define both their careers. The intensity of their creative bond was so profound that people questioned whether something deeper was happening between these two men who seemed to read each other's musical minds. Bernard Edwards was born in Greenville, North Carolina, and grew up in Brooklyn, New York, where he met Nile Rodgers in the early 1970s through pure chance. Edwards was working at a post office with the mother of Rodgers' girlfriend when their paths crossed. Their first collaboration was electric. After just one night playing together, Rodgers told Edwards he never wanted to do another gig without him. Edwards felt the same way, creating a musical marriage that would last over 2 decades. The duo's creative process was intensely personal, bordering on telepathic. They would spend days interviewing artists, diving deep into their psyches to create what they called musical documentaries. With Diana Ross, they spent 2 days learning about her affair with Berry Gordy, her struggles with independence, and her fears about her career. They weren't just making music, they were conducting musical therapy sessions. In his lone bass player interview back in September 1992, Edwards revealed that his subtly sophisticated subhooks were mostly a reaction to the chicken scratch guitar parts of Nile Rodgers. I consider the two of us a rhythm section, even without drums, because we keep so much rhythm going. My bass lines are usually a reaction to his guitar rhythms. But Rodgers later clarified the deeper truth. What he didn't mention is he wouldn't start playing bass until I came up with something that he liked. If he played along, I knew the song was going to be cool because Bernard was 10 times hipper than everyone else. This creative codependency created music magic, but also personal tension. Edwards was the family man who preferred staying home with his children, while Rodgers was the party animal who discovered inspiration in underground clubs and cocaine-fueled all-nighters. Their different lifestyles created friction that sometimes spilled into their professional relationship. The duo discussed their evolving approach to songwriting in a 1979 interview with Blues and Soul, revealing something telling. We've tried to stay away from anything that was really controversial in our tunes, so we were kind of worried about it, but it seems that people are digging it anyway. You see, we try to write songs that will relate, and the fact is that people, especially in big cities, definitely relate to the concept of a love affair outside of the conventional boundaries that society had set up. Were they talking about their own relationship? The language suggests a deeper understanding of unconventional love than most straight musical partnerships would explore. Their music consistently dealt with themes of forbidden desire, secret relationships, and breaking social boundaries. Songs like I Want Your Love and Good Times weren't just dance floor fillers. They were explorations of desire that felt personal. Nile elaborated on their collaborative approach. So, in my position, producers are really responsible for the food, the atmosphere, the vibe. You have to be able to be part psychologist, and in my case, I'm an arranger, so I do the arrangements, the orchestration. The level of intimacy required for this kind of creative partnership went far beyond typical professional relationships. The intensity of their partnership sometimes created problems with other band members who felt like outsiders looking in. Original vocalist Norma Jean Wright left partly because she felt excluded from the Rodgers-Edwards creative bubble. Other musicians described feeling like they were witnessing something private between the two men, a creative intimacy that had no room for others. Their musical marriage lasted through disco's death, the rise of hip-hop, and changing industry landscapes. But like many intense creative partnerships, it was complicated by ego, artistic differences, and the pressures of constant collaboration. They broke up and reunited multiple times, each separation feeling like a divorce, each reunion like a remarriage. The partnership ended tragically in 1996 when Edwards, weakened by cancer that few knew about, died of pneumonia during a tour in Japan. Rodgers discovered his body the next day, ending a musical love affair that had defined both their lives for over 2 decades. Chic wasn't just a band. They were a cultural lightning rod that attracted controversy wherever they went. From their formation in 1976 through their multiple reunions, internal disputes and external conflicts followed them like shadows. The sophisticated disco collective became ground zero for battles over race, sexuality, artistic credibility, and the very definition of what popular music should be. Chic was founded in 1972 by guitarist Nile Rodgers and bassist Bernard Edwards as the Big Apple Band. The group regarded themselves as a rock band for the disco movement that made good on hippie peace, love, and freedom. But their crossover appeal and cultural sophistication made them targets from multiple directions. White rock fans dismissed them as sellout disco, while some black audiences questioned their authenticity. The disco backlash of 1979 hit Chic particularly hard because they represented everything the anti-disco movement hated. Black musicians making music that white people danced to, freedom, and cultural sophistication that threatened traditional rock hierarchies. Le Freak became one of the most commercially successful songs of the disco era, selling more than 7 million singles worldwide, which only intensified the backlash. But success brought its own internal problems. Band members began feeling like hired hands rather than creative partners in what was clearly the Rodgers-Edwards show. Original vocalist Norma Jean Wright left early, citing feeling marginalized by the duo's creative control. She later revealed in interviews that she felt like a voice for hire rather than a true band member, despite her contributions to their early sound. The tension reached dangerous levels during their most successful period. Wright's departure was followed by other key members who felt excluded from the inner circle. Drummer Tony Thompson, despite being credited as a founding member, often complained about being shut out of songwriting credits and decision-making processes. The band's success was built on the backs of talented musicians who felt increasingly disposable. Edwards was responsible for writing and producing songs for their band Chic, including the hits Dance, 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 Everybody Dance, Le Freak, I Want Your Love, and Good Times. But the team also wrote and produced hits for other artists such as Sister Sledge, Diana Ross, and others, creating a business empire that left original Chic members feeling like employees in their own band. The controversy exploded when Sister Sledge's We Are Family became a bigger hit than any Chic song at the time. Band members questioned why Rodgers and Edwards were giving their best material to other artists while Chic struggled for recognition. The answer revealed the calculating nature of their business strategy. They used Chic as a laboratory for ideas that they'd perfect for bigger stars. When disco died in 1979, Chic members found themselves professionally stranded. The disco backlash was so severe that being associated with the genre became career suicide. While Rodgers and Edwards pivoted to production work with rock artists like David Bowie, the other band members struggled to find work in an industry that had turned against everything they represented. The tension reached its peak during their 1983 breakup. Edwards released a solo album, Glad to Be Here, and formed the supergroup Power Station with Duran Duran members and Robert Palmer. Meanwhile, Thompson worked with various artists, often billing himself as Tony Thompson of Chic to maintain his marketability. The band members were essentially competing with each other using the Chic brand. When they reunited in the early 1990s for the album Chicism, old wounds reopened immediately. A new edition of Chic began playing sold-out shows across Japan in 1995, but the original tensions remained. Musicians who had been excluded from songwriting credits for decades were still being treated as hired guns, despite their contributions to the band's legendary sound. The most tragic controversy came during their 1996 Japan tour. Edwards, weakened by cancer that he'd hidden from most band members, collapsed during a performance. Rodgers recalled Edwards' final performance. At the last show of the tour, Bernard passed out during a verse of Let's Dance, and when the bass stopped, it happened in such a hip place that I thought, wow, I wonder why we didn't do the record like that. He recovered and came in exactly 6 bars later. Edwards died alone in his hotel room that night, ending decades of unresolved creative and personal tensions. His death left surviving band members feeling cheated out of closure and proper recognition for their contributions to one of music's most influential groups. The loss devastated Rodgers and left him to carry the Chic legacy alone, dealing with decades of unresolved creative disputes and personal resentments that would never be fully resolved. While Nile Rodgers was conquering the music world, he was fighting demons that threatened to destroy everything he'd built. His struggles with addiction, cancer, and personal relationships created a pattern of self-destruction that nearly ended his career multiple times. The man who soundtracked everyone else's good times was living through his own personal hell, hidden behind the glamour of studio sessions and hit records. Growing up, Rodgers' household was a masterclass in functional addiction. His mother, father, stepfather, and siblings were all heroin addicts, but they maintained jobs and social respectability while feeding their habits. In my world, it was completely normal. My family, everybody in my immediate area, all the adults, were all heroin addicts, Rodgers recalled. Despite their drug use, he describes them as smart, hardworking people, high-functioning addicts whose success enabled their destruction. That's why they were able to become heroin addicts, because they all had jobs, he explained. They were beatniks, they were cool, and they had money to throw around, and they threw it around on heroin. This normalization of drug use as a lifestyle choice rather than a problem would shape Rodgers' own relationship with substances for decades. The 1980s brought Rodgers to the peak of his success and the depths of his addiction. Like his biological father, Rodgers' success as a producer was accompanied by a serious drug addiction that nearly killed him multiple times. In the 80s, he had a near-death experience while partying with Robert Downey Jr., involving massive amounts of drugs and alcohol. "I was fine, but then I passed out. Typical rock and roll death," Rodgers joked, but the reality was far from funny. The most dangerous moment came during Madonna's 36th birthday party, when Rodgers experienced his first and only bout of cocaine psychosis. After a 3-day bender without sleep, he became completely paranoid and delusional. "When I woke up, I had my first and only bout of cocaine psychosis. I called my home in New York and heard my answering machine tell me clearly that there was a contract out on my life."
I was suffering from cocaine psychosis, that the mob was out to kill me. I called my answering machine, and this guy who I know is a hitman clearly told me to enjoy myself because it's going to be the last day of my life.
What?
And I was calling everybody, and the answer I got back from everyone was, "Hey, Nada, are you doing coke?"
What followed was a terrifying descent into madness that revealed the depths of his addiction. Rodgers recalled being in a closet in a Florida hotel, clutching a gun and a samurai sword as he hallucinated threats that existed only in his drug-addled mind. For hours, he prepared for a war that wasn't real, armed and dangerous to himself and anyone who might have encountered him. The final straw was at Madonna's house party.
Because it was the last time I ever had a drink or a drug. I was so wasted that I was carried back to my hotel room. And when I got to my hotel room, I was so high, I climbed out the window to get higher.
But sobriety brought new battles. Rodgers was diagnosed with an aggressive form of prostate cancer in October 2010, followed by kidney cancer in 2017. When he learned about his second cancer diagnosis, he was surprisingly calm, applying lessons learned from his addiction recovery. "My prognosis is 100% recovery. You can start dancing, singing, and cheering now," he wrote, maintaining the optimism that had carried him through decades of personal struggles. Today, Nile Rodgers stands as one of music's greatest survivors, a man who conquered addiction, beat cancer twice, and transformed personal pain into universal anthems. But his journey from self-destruction to redemption reveals truths about the cost of genius and the power of resilience that go far beyond his public persona as the disco king who never stops smiling. Rodgers has successfully battled cancer twice, remaining optimistic throughout and sharing his experience to inspire others. He's been sober for almost 30 years now, a confirmed tea drinker who tries to limit his vice to 1 pot a day. But success hasn't erased the contradictions that have defined his career. His Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction in 2017 was bittersweet, highlighting the ongoing tension between his individual recognition and Chic's collective legacy. "It's sort of bittersweet," Rodgers admitted. "I'm quite flattered that they believed that I was worthy, but my band Chic didn't win. They plucked me out of the band and said, 'You're better than Chic.' That's wacky to me. I feel like somebody put me in the lifeboat and told my family they can't get in." This survivor's guilt extends beyond awards recognition to the deeper question of what it means to outlive your creative partners and bandmates. Bernard Edwards died in 1996. Tony Thompson passed away in 2003, and other key Chic members have struggled with the legacy of a band that was never properly recognized during its peak years. Rodgers carries their memories and contributions while building a solo legacy that sometimes overshadows the collective effort that made it all possible. The gay rumors that launched decades of speculation have become irrelevant in the face of Rodgers' actual legacy. In 2023, Rolling Stone placed Rodgers 7th on a list of the 250 greatest guitarists of all time, writing, "There's influential, then there's massively influential, then there's Nile Rodgers, a true innovator who never slows down, still making history with his guitar." The recognition acknowledges not just his past achievements, but his continued relevance in an industry that typically discards older artists. The man who wrote the gay community's anthem while being straight himself has spent decades proving that authenticity isn't about labels. It's about understanding, empathy, and the courage to create art that speaks to universal human experiences. From a bathroom encounter in a gay club to Grammy stages, from cocaine psychosis to cancer survivor, from disco's death to its resurrection, Rodgers has remained ready for whatever comes next. In the end, that might be his greatest controversy of all: being genuine in an industry built on artifice, surviving in a business that typically destroys its pioneers, and continuing to create while carrying the weight of his own legend. The rumors about his sexuality pale in comparison to the reality of his resilience. Anyway, that's it for this video, folks. Bye.